oh, I'm like building this graph in my mind right now. You create this, you're like an individual thinker. And most, okay, fuck, never mind. I don't have this idea. I don't have this idea developed.
This graph is dialed in
This
the
graph
blockchain,
is,
but not in my brain chain.
It's not on. It's on some like, what I was trying to,
There's time for it.
What I was trying to basically say is, okay, we're people who have ideas. And what we do is kind of our superpower is what you're talking about. Diving into projects that we're really passionate about that'll, help us express ourselves while helping other people at the same time. And then you create an organization that is like a manifestation of one of those projects.
Yeah.
Like this is like one of many things that we could
In our
do
brain.
or
Yep.
contributions
Absolutely.
that we could have. And that thing is Cat and Cloud. And when you're building an organization like that at the beginning, you're deeply involved in every aspect of it because that's you doing the work to make this thing a reality. And then you do it.
And you're showing other people that it's possible.
Yeah.
Right.
And then where we're at now, I feel like there is almost this ability to detach in a healthy way from the framework that is created because a lot of people are taking care
like
of
the
what
intro framework.
the intro
like
framework.
We're graduating almost from high school.
And then just like
elementary school.
strike out in another way and be like, okay, cool. Like what is the next gift that I have to give? Like what's my next contribution? And maybe that doesn't exist in the framework that exists now, but it's a benefit to the culture and everybody that ties along with it. And I think that's kind of, I've been thinking a lot about that too, because it seems like we're at that clip.
I mean, we're definitely walking through the place where we don't have to prove to our leadership team that this ideal and our values and our mission and our vision are important and they work. So that alone, fully being able to trust a group of people to take what we started and to continue to embellish and grow it is the beginning of whatever could be next. So to, yes.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
that
like
framework's been passed on.
Yeah. Because
and accepted, not only passed on, but accepted.
There's those little
and believed in.
knowledge. Yeah. Believed in. That's huge. Those little knowledge drops like we talked about earlier. We have something to offer in that way, probably forever. But I was sitting in a bar back training last night just because I was here. And I was like, oh, I'm going to stay. And I stayed.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, nobody needs me here.
Right.
I'm like, not.
Right.
It's not. I don't have anything crazy to offer that would require me to be there for the 2 hours. It was fun to be there, or like an hour plus. So I was like, oh, it's cool to watch new baristas go through those motions and role play for guests and all that stuff. That was like energizing in its own way. But I'm like, I don't need to. Herman's got it. Alyssa's got it. They've got
capable,
they're
smart,
plugged in.
awesome.
Yeah. So at some point it's like, okay, cool. What's the next rung on the ladder or next direction you could go?
So that's the trip to me, right? Is it's like this never meet your heroes. Everybody's just, I was at my grandma's 89th birthday and there's all my family members and they're just like saying shit that is really, really nice and typically would inflate the ego. And I'm sitting here going like, they're like, yeah, and I was just sitting and I'm like listening to them. They're not even talking to me. They're talking about me. I was listening to Jared talk at breakfast this morning about just ideas and plans and people. And I'm just like, wow, that's my son. And I'm like, this is cool. But also like, and then they told me what they're saying. I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, I'm just a dude who like did something that I had an idea about. And I didn't even like blow it out of the water. I just kept going and pursuing it and asked for help and found ways to accomplish it. And I'm not saying that to minimize, even though it feels that way. I'm saying that because every fucking human being out there can do the shit that like we did in a way. In the context, we thought something was important. We shared it. We thought about how we could share it. And then we taught people how we could do it. And then they started sharing it. And what we did, if you reduce it down to what we did, is we found a building and we made coffee in it and we put equipment in it. And then we said, this is how we talk about it. This is how we do it. And this is why it's important culturally. And this culture thing is the most important thing, not all the stuff. And to me, that's what was tripping me out is that they were talking about the stuff that I was doing, not the culture, not the stuff that actually makes the stuff important. And they probably see that, and I wasn't even mad. I was just like, this is what's funny to me, is they think that I am really amazing because I decided to find a way to find money to build a thing in a space. And it's like, that's actually not terribly genius. I'm hoping that it's more, I'm trying to encourage people to see that, like, actors are humans. I'm a human. You're a human. And at the end of the day, we're all humans.
But I think that it's not that the rarity of that is what makes it special. Not because people can't, because what does it feel like to do that? You know,
right.
What does it feel like to have an idea, share that idea with everybody? Like, ideas are safe when they're in your head. Like, you have an idea. Oh man, we all have really awesome ideas. But if we keep it locked away, that's cool, because an idea in our head is perfect. Like, nobody gets to comment on that idea. I don't have to take any action on it. It's just a really good idea. Once we put it out there, then we're going against the grain of everything that we've been told to do. And it's different for different generations.
Sure.
Like, if we're talking about our parents' generation, it's like, you don't need to worry about all that weird shit that you're thinking. All you need to do is get a job that'll make enough money to where you can pay the rent and be safe.
It's true.
And that's why, even though at some level, like, dude, my mom loves what we've done. She's like so enthralled with it. She's a huge supporter and everything. But there's some little snippet of her brain that's like, are you going to go back to college and finish and get your degree? And it's like, why? What for? So, well, that's what you do. Like, that's the path of safety. So,
yeah, I get that.
Like, there's the path of safety is so strong that when people veer off that path, like, you're really exposed. So I think like
they're
when
seeing like bravery in some capacity.
That's what they're seeing. I don't think they're seeing like, oh, he had the balls to rent a fucking building. It's more like, dude, he was brave enough to, like, he had an idea and then he figured out how to make it happen. He actually took action on it and like manifested this thing into reality, instead of what most people do, which is like, one day I got this dream. One day I could do this thing. And like, I think that's such a cool lesson, because it doesn't need to be as grand as opening a business or starting a thing. It could be working on a project. It could be sharing music. It could be even just creating music that's really important to you and sharing it with friends. Like, it's so many different ways
sharing your perspective
to do that. And it's, dude, like, it's hard. Like,
yeah, I'm not trying to minimize that it wasn't and isn't hard for people to do. I would hope that people could think that everybody's got their special capabilities, and maybe mine did suit me well enough to help do this. But at the same time, I'm not incredibly smarter than a lot of people and or more capable than a lot of people. I'm just able to do what I can do, and that, to me, would hopefully allow somebody to see themselves and say, well, what am I actually pretty good at that I kind of minimize in myself? Or what am I able to do that I just don't do, and I don't even have a real good reason, with the exception of I don't get enough feedback and positive reinforcement around it. Stuff like that, where it's like, I guess I did, and we always did get positive reinforcement around the work that we did, and that was helpful, and that does give you an element of fearlessness. But there was mention multiple times over of like me in high school and elementary school, of them being like, they would say, oh yeah, I just knew, I don't know, Jared was just kind of like going to do what he was going to do. And he didn't really have that weird fear of like being an idiot, even though I absolutely do. I would just do the shit. Like that is like one of the biggest fear, like the biggest self-conscious things I have, is that I feel like people think I'm an idiot. Maybe less so now that I have a successful business, but that's been pretty consistently my insecurity, is that people think I'm a dumbass sporty guy. And so it's funny to hear my family be like, yeah, he was always just going to like do what he was going to do. I didn't even worry. He was going to go crush it. I'm like, I did not feel that way at all. I was fucking dropping out of college, no direction whatsoever. Being a barista at the local coffee shop, like, again, no direction whatsoever. Like,
yeah, I think
literally none. Colby and Ryan decided to open a shop, and they're like, come with. And I'm like, my gut says this is my next move in the future. And that's just how it all came to be. And it's a trip to think about when people view you as this one way. and they're not necessarily wrong, but the way it rolls out doesn't feel like you were like intentionally going to do this.
And who knows how they really view you? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
don't know.
People have said that about me too.
Yeah.
And they're like, I always knew you were going to do something. And it's like, well, you always knew I was going to do something. And now you say it now that I did something. It's like, if I just had a job at Macy's, I doubt you'd be like, oh yeah, I always thought Chris was going to do something. And like randomly he just works at Macy's.
Yeah, they wouldn't tell you that then, right?
Yeah, I don't think they would say anything. Because my mom says the same thing about me, but and I challenge her on this and it frustrates the shit out of her, which she always says, like, I always knew you were going to leave town, you were going to go out on your own, and you were going to do something because you're just that kind of person. And I always knew your brother was going to stay here and never go. Meanwhile, I'm like, well, Mom, like, I really felt a lot of pressure. You know, you were saying like, hey, you got to finish school. You got to stay here. Like, you never really told me that at the time. Like, there was no version of 18-year-old me where my mom was like, you know what? You should just move to LA or move to San Francisco right now because this place isn't for you and you can figure out there's something else that's going on inside you. So people will say that they think that, and maybe some of them did, and maybe she did, but I'm always just curious as like,
then
why wasn't that really reinforced in the moment? It's always, you know, after. And my dad is funny because my dad, I think that's where the bravery is just really impressive. You know, my dad builds cabinets, and he'll say every time I see him, he's like, you know, I really should have just moved down to Los Angeles when I was 17, 18, because that's where stuff was happening. And, you know, I always had the pull to it, and there was like more creativity down there, and I could have had a whole different thing. And I'm just like, why didn't you? And the answer is like, I don't know. Oh. There's a million reasons to keep doing exactly what you're doing. You know, objects in motion, it's just the known path feels so much more safe. And I think that's why it's impressive when people don't take it. But I agree with you. Everybody, there's nothing special about us, more so than anybody else. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
We have our own special sauce, but everybody out there listening has their own special sauce too.
The reason that we mean anything is because people somehow care and react in a positive way, mostly, to the things that we are doing. And that's it. And I'm grateful for it. Don't get me wrong. I find myself going, and maybe that was kind of the trip to me too. And it's maybe an insecurity that I'm going to continue to get over. It's just like, I'll never forget being so interested in helping and making things awesome and creating in high school. But because I wasn't good on paper, grades wise, right? That my place of creation was play basketball and be good at it, which is it's very creative, whether you believe it or not. Basketball is like one of the most creative sports around. It's intuitive, and you have to be creative every single moment of it. That's awesome. But then I'll never forget, I somehow would always make it onto like the school government, right? And whatever they were, right? All those things. And I was one year like
chairman
a secretary,
of the board,
like whatever you do as a secretary, which was nothing. And the sergeant at arms or some shenanigans, whatever, all this stuff.
You have a rifle?
I don't know. It's like, it basically gets you scholarships.
I have a pellet gun.
But I remember like feeling patronized because the way people looked at creativity and wisdom was just so different back then. And I'm not saying that I felt like I was smart, but we put together these like the dances, right? And one of them was about time, and like we were going back in time, and everybody was dressing up as stuff, and like we gave out these cups, and I had the idea to like make the thing around the bottom of like the flute like a clock, and it was like people tried to make me feel like I did something cool, and they're like, and that was Jared's idea to put the clock on the thing. And I remember feeling so patronized by like, I was like, this is the weirdest thing ever, because that's like not, I don't know. I'm just.
Do you think they were being real though? Do you
they
think
were
they
absolutely
were pretty stoked? Yeah.
Well, it was my girlfriend, but at the same time, I was like, I mean, that's pretty basic. I don't know. It was like a self-conscious thing where it's like, I put a clock on a thing.
Basic to you.
Basic to me. I know. And that's what's
basic
weird.
to you, given maybe
that's the thing. It's like having a high standard for stuff, which is maybe unhealthy at the same time. When something that feels like you're not proud of it becomes something that people think is super cool. And then the thing you're trying to do that you really want to be proud about isn't maybe like coming through.
Well, what was that thing? Like, what were you trying to really do?
What was I trying to do? Like, not be looked at as the guy who was terrible at school, ADD. goofy, like non-reliable, not long-term like the guy who, at least as far as what I was, the narrative that I was telling myself that I believe people thought was, this poor, literally poor financially guy, maybe he'll finish college, probably not, and who knows what he's going to do, but we're mostly worried for him, is kind of the vibe that I got from people. Like, we need to take care of this kid.
Isn't it funny that...
So that's more, I think, why I'm like, the clock? Like, that's what you think? Like, that you're trying to encourage me through the clock is kind of how it felt. And it felt patronizing. Yeah. Like, you're valuable. Check out what you did with this clock in our banquet. And
the funny thing is unless they told you, and even if they did, like, you really have no idea what those people thought of you at all.
No, like, I'm coming to find out that I think they thought a lot higher of me than I thought of myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, it's the funny thing is... I drew this picture the other night where this dude's got like this really long arm and he's holding on the one flag that's like his truth, and then the other flag is like other people's expectations, and now we're like trying to hold on to both. But the weirdest thing about other people's expectations is that 99% of the time they're all just assumptions that we make up in our head. Like, we don't really know what people think about us. We don't really know how people are judging what we're doing. It's our own narrative that we've created in our head, and then we hold that against ourselves and pretend that it's other people holding it against us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just so... Did you read The Four Agreements? Have you read that book?
No, I've got a little bit of a list right now.
That one's a good one.
I finished
it's
When
super
Things Fall
short
Apart,
too.
Yes to Life.
It's I think if you get the audiobook, it's only like 2.5 hours.
I got a Boundaries book. I got some books to read.
That one, yeah.
Sparked now.
Sparked, bro.
Spark it up. Dang, it's 11:20.
How did that happen?
We got into a flow state. Okay, bye. We gotta go. Gotta go cup the coffee.
Hey everyone, that's the podcast for the week. Thanks so much for listening. If you heard something that inspired you, let us know, or tell a friend. These are the types of connections that are the most important to us and that we seek to create every day. If there's something you heard and you want to know more about, send us an email to podcast@catandcloud.com or head to our website, catandcloud.com/podcast, and let us know. While you're on our site, check out everything we have to offer. Dive deep into one of our single origin coffees or pick up a little treat for yourself. We have something for everyone, so check it out. Also, find us in the usual places, YouTube, Instagram. We're always there sharing amazing things. All right, that's it. Thanks everyone for being awesome. We'll be back next week.